Before we get into today's video, I wanted to talk about one of the best ways to save money on Evony packs today. We all know that buying packs is the best way to turbocharge your growth, and it's always better to save money while getting the same rewards. From August 6th to September 3rd, US customers can get 20% back on all Evony purchases made through the Amazon App Store. To take advantage of this awesome deal, follow 3 simple steps. Number 1, install the Amazon App Store on your Android device or BlueStacks emulator. Number 2, download Evony through the Amazon App Store. And number 3, purchase packages in Evony to get 20% back in Amazon coins. I have put a link to this website in the description of the video. This website includes QR codes to download and buy Amazon coins and an in-depth set of instructions on how to get Amazon App Store set up. Make sure you take advantage of this amazing deal while it lasts. Hello everyone, welcome back to Optimize Evony. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about, in my opinion, what the biggest misconception or the biggest, lie that people tell about Evony is. And there's a lot of weird things that I've heard, over the years, a lot of which have been disproven in terms of like, there's the whole like T4 siege debacle, where people were building massive amounts of T4 siege in order to try and defend from siege rallies, and quite frankly, it didn't really work. It gives up a lot of points. There's a whole bunch of stuff in terms of do do speed books work? Do uh, you know what kind of buffs work where and stuff like that. There's a whole bunch of things that I've heard. There's people who only build high tier troops. Don't do that if you've if you are one of those people. But one of the most pervasive myths that I've found in Evony to this day is the incessant need to build more troops. That people believe that building more troops will help their defense. And in often cases, it's actually not true at all. Uh, Building more troops can oftentimes leave you more vulnerable. Maybe you won't die from an attack, but you will bleed points if your buffs and debuffs and everything like that isn't in check. So oftentimes the most common question that I get is, "Oh, what troops should I build to improve my defense?" And most of the time I have to go and say, "Okay, like what are you getting attacked with? What are you doing? What troops are defending well? What troops aren't defending well? What are your buffs? What are your debuffs?" Before you can even answer that question. And a lot of times the answer is no, you don't really need to build more troops. You need to, do more research. You need to level up. You need to do other things that troops are not going to cover. So I had some reports from the most recent battlefield that we played. Uh, these are by no means like the worst reports that I've seen or anything like that, but they did show kind of what I'm trying to show here, and so they're kind of a good starting point to understand what I'm actually talking about. So um, also, by the way, I don't know if you saw, but they have now just released Witch Sixes into this event. For some reason, the first like 3 days or 4 days of the event have not had Witch Sixes. They gave you a measly 20 Witch boxes to compensate. That's not nearly enough for most, rallying alliances and stuff like that. But at least they're finally here. So yeah, get to killing those Witch Sixes. Great resources and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, let's take a look at some of these reports. So this is a siege rally. This guy was 19.7 billion. He was a K40. So that's kind of big for a K40. Basically, and the reason why I'm saying that is that there are basically buff caps at each level. This guy is nowhere near the buff caps for K40, but if he had been at K41, K42, or higher up, he likely would have had more military academy research done and other things done that would have helped him defend a little bit more. So not a huge rally, maybe like a 44 million rally um, with 27 million reigns and obviously quite a bit of troops here. Yeah, siege rally, like I said, but you can see the power exchange is quite significant. So 2.5 to 3.5. I think the other report that I saved is even a little bit more intense. Yeah, here. And so let's take a look at the buffs. The buffs, particularly because we're attacking with siege, we're looking at the siege buffs here. The siege HP buff is pretty low for someone that's at 18, 19 build power. Siege attack is pretty low, and then the siege debuffs are actually okay. I think that's actually probably because he's inheriting some of the siege debuffs from the reigns. And the reason why I can kind of tell that is I think there was one different reign here, and you can see that the siege HP debuff changed. So yeah, he was inheriting some of those from the K44, likely that was reigning him. He probably didn't have that high of siege HP debuff. And so while the reigns didn't really help him all that much. It was there was maybe like one siege reign, but like one cav and a whole bunch of archer and ground, which don't really help against siege reigns, particular or siege rallies, particularly when you have a lot of troops. So let's look into this and see why just building more troops is not going to be the solution here. So first of all, he doesn't have T15 siege. That's pretty common for someone at K40. It's the hardest one to actually unlock because you need to do market, embassy, and war hall all before you get to the workshop level 40. So tons and tons of res to actually do that. But it is kind of worth it once you get there. So we kind of melted through his siege. Yes, his siege killed a lot, but it wasn't a massive rally, and he had a bunch of reigns here. And so then this guy basically, I don't really know what he was doing. He kept healing. I don't know if he was pushing for points or something like that, but we would hit him with a rally. It would go negative for him. He would heal and basically go again. And his team was winning at that time, so I don't I don't know why you would actually do that because you're jeopardizing your team win and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, so basically, the we're killing a lot of his high tier siege because he has a lot of high tier siege. Siege is maybe not the best example of this. An archer is maybe a little bit better of an example because the high tier or high tier uh, mounts are a little bit more of a liability than high tier siege. High tier siege actually defends pretty well against other high tier siege, but as you can see, the buffs were just not there's a pretty significant buff disparity. If you look between my attacking buffs and his defending buffs, and then those debuffs. So really, what I mean, it's a long-winded way. I just wanted to show an example of this, but do not build troops if your buffs cannot support it, because really, this game comes down to power exchanges, right? Power exchanges are point exchanges, and while those aren't always the same thing, you can get a rough estimate of how positive or how negative you are based on the actual report. And so here, you know, it's like what 2.3, 2.4 to 3.2. The other one was 2 2.5 to 3.5, plus some small stuff in the reigns, that's going negative. And so while it's not going crazy negative, this was just one of the only reports that I that I had to show this from our last battlefield. Um, it is still a liability. And so, particularly if you have really low buffs, these buffs are low. Like if he did not have reigns, we would have eaten a lot more into him. I think this was also kind of late into the battlefield as well. But particularly like yeah, if we hit him with a full archer, a 60 mil rally archer rally, and he has 1600 mount HP, and looks like his range attack debuff is actually pretty decent, but um, regardless, like it's going to do a lot of damage just because he has so many high tier troops, and that's just a lot of points to give. So for people who are not coiners and don't have like quite as much of the military academy done, the normal academy done, um, don't build more troops. Building more troops is just a liability. Uh, Save those res for opening up more march size, opening up higher keep levels, more military academy levels, which unlock more defensive capabilities. If you're already a liability on defense, work to improve those defense stats before you go and train more troops. I would say there's two exceptions to this rule. One, you want to have your T1 wall in place. So if you do not have your T1 wall in place, that is a good power exchange. Not always, but it that is a good way to save yourself from being zeroed super easily, particularly by solos. If you have flats and you're 1 billion T1 calves, and assorted layers kind of coming up from there. The other piece is if you have siege, really I would not recommend building anything below T9 siege. So T8 and below, uh, like 1 million, 2 million is the most that I would really recommend building, unless you're just a massive keep. Then you can build a little bit more, but really it's not benefiting you because siege is built so differently, where the siege attack range is the limiting factor. And so uh, if you don't have a lot of high tier siege, it can also be a liability, where all of your siege gets killed. However, if you don't have the buffs to support it, defending with siege is one of the hardest things to do in the game. And when I say hardest, of course, what I mean is most expensive. Siege HP is a really tough debuff to get, and you need to have good buffs and debuffs to be able to support a siege solo, siege rally, stuff like that. It's much better to have your teammates be able to rain you with siege than for you to have a massive amount of siege that is just going to die. Um, so yeah, I know this was kind of a little bit ranty, but this is probably one of if I could get everyone in my alliance to abide by this, if I could get everyone in all the alliances that I play with, all of the teams that I play with to abide by this, you would win so many more battles, right? Because you're only as strong as your weakest link. The second that there's someone on your team that's getting, zeroed in one hit, zeroed in two hits, and giving up, 5, 10 billion in power, uh, that's a big swing in points. And so even if you're doing really well, rallying and stuff like that, like a few defenses like that where you're losing a lot really can be the difference between whether you win and lose battlefield. And I think this is especially prevalent in C1. And the reason why this is prevalent in C1 is because in C1 was around before K30 or K35 released and K45 released. And so back when the max keep level was K25, basically people got to the point where they had maxed everything that they really needed to max, and so then they just kept building more and more troops. And so that kind of got this mindset among particularly the players that weren't quite there yet, that were kind of catching up, that they needed to build more troops to survive. And also, I think another aspect is you do see the bigger players in your alliance being able to take more defenses and be able to survive longer, and so that's obviously something that people want to do. However, it's only useful if you're doing that, but you're also going relatively positive or at least even on those defenses. You don't want to be going crazy negative on all those defenses, but you're just surviving for, X number of rallies, because, you're really just like sacrificing points and making your team lose, quite frankly. So it's actually a relatively selfish thing to do, to build troops when your tech power and your buffs are not quite up to snub. So I hope this helped some people. I'm going to kind of keep going on how to actually go and improve those buffs and where to target first and stuff like that in some of the next videos. But I just wanted to get this out here because this is something that I just hear over and over and over again. What troops do I build? How do I improve my defense by building troops? And that's the wrong premise. I would much rather have better buffs with less troops than lots of troops and really bad buffs. So uh, always remember that, and I'll see you in the next video. As always, remember to like and subscribe, and remember that there is a promotion going on with Amazon coins right now, where you can get 20% back on all of your purchase within Evony. The link is in the description, and I'll see you in the next video.